What if I told you that everything you see in this world was created with just dirt, a crafting table, and an apple? For 300 Minecraft days, my friend Hobby and I have grinded as hard as we could on this structureless Superflat world to create this amazing base from nothing. After killing hundreds of zombies for their rare iron ingot drops, we were able to make a cauldron which filled up with rain and provided us with an infinite source of water. From there, we were able to kill enough drown for a lightning rod, which we used to magically transform our pigs into piglins. After collecting enough gold for a golden apple, we were able to get a witch to throw a weakness potion at a villager and begin trading for emeralds. Finally, after 100 days, Wandy T delivered us a sapling and we had infinite wood. For the next 200 days, we worked to create an iron farm, a villager trading hall, automatic crop farms, and even some custom farms of our own. We then used wool to terraform a beautiful natural environment for our base, transitioning from winter to spring to fall and finally to summer. Now we're spending another 100 days in this world to see what other items we can unlock and answer the question, just how far is it possible to go with just dirt? So after a long break, we opened up the world and began day one. Right away, there were a bunch of mobs for Hobby to deal with, but at least they gave him a baked potato.
I got a baked potato.
Meanwhile, all of my mods were broken and I spent the day trying to deal with lighting errors and other bugs. But after this rocky start, I had everything set up for day two. I decided to start a brand new project, decorating this farm area. For this project, I needed tons of dirt, so I traded for some new shovels and got to digging. Meanwhile, Hobby spent the day grabbing some dyes so he could start moving the sheep. See, last episode, Hobby realized that the warm sheep colors were near the cold area, and the cold sheep colors were near the warm area. I asked you guys if we should preserve the historic sheep farm as is, or appease Hobby and spend the time to move them. And yeah, it was pretty clear who you guys sided with. By the time day 3 rolled around, Hobby realized that moving the sheep was going to take a while.
Yeah, moving all these sheep is gonna take me a few days.
Meanwhile, I placed all of my dirt down so fast that I also realized my project was going to take a lot longer than anticipated. And then Minecraft Realms crashed. 400 days, off to a great start. We decided to call it a night and we came back a week later to try and record again, and Hobby spent the week making a new skin. Who is he?
I have my glow.
Doesn't he look great? After that, I went back to placing dirt, making sure to look out for slime chunks. I'm path blocking the slime chunks for now, but later I'll go through and replace this with moss carpets. But to do that, we're gonna need a better way to get moss, so I started trying to work out how to construct some sort of manual moss farm. If you're new to this series, there is absolutely no way to get lava as of right now in Structureless Superflat. This means that we can't get stone or go to the nether. So without stone, farms have to be really simple. If Mojang were to make it so that pigs struck by lightning turned into regular piglins instead of zombified piglins, you would have a small 15-second window to barter with them for the obsidian needed to make a portal and access lava before they turn back into zombies from being in the overworld. It would be an insane challenge since getting gold is already so hard, but imagine finally getting access to stone on this world. But I digress. I continued working on my simple moss farm on day 5, and then Hobby swung by the crystal cave to help me out with hiding the redstone. By the next day, we had finished up the redstone for the farm, and after a few more improvements, I was feeling super happy with the end result. I was able to use the moss carpet from the new farm to start covering up the slime chunks on day 7, but my cat Nico took a poop that was so stinky that I had to go AFK to clear his litter box. While I took care of that, Hobby continued work on the sheep switcheroo. By day 8, Hobby was done with the outer ring and started adjusting the inner ring by rotating all of the sheep clockwise. I continued to gather moss and place carpets and was finally able to return to terraforming on day 9. By our 10th day, the sheep switcheroo was finally complete. I worked on placing more dirt and I accidentally created another one of my famous Mog spawners. Hobby, as usual, came in clutch with the assist and threw me some torches to light up my mess. Although Hobby and I were both a bit rusty, with our first 10 days out of the way, it finally felt like we were getting back into the swing of things on this world. Unfortunately, Hobby discovered that thanks to my Mog spawner, a zombie had infiltrated our potato farm and taken out a villager. We decided that we'd wait until I was fully done terraforming in the area to get the new villagers in place. That night, Hobby and I discussed where to put a glitchy string farm design that Hobby found online. The farm is so fast that it might actually be the easiest way to get wool. Plus, string is a great trade for us to get emeralds. The next day, after we added some cyan wool to try and finish up the bottom of Lagoon, Hobby started constructing the string farm and was able to quickly get it working. And wow, this thing is so broken. It's probably going to be patched out in 1.20, so we'll just have to enjoy it while it lasts. I spent the day making it so that the moss farm can be easily converted into a flower farm. That way we can quickly get certain dyes like light gray and red for crafting wool colors with the wool we'll get from our new string farm. By the end of the day, I think Hobby was starting to lose it a bit because he started hearing voices.
Use mouse cursor or tab button to select element. Game menu, options.
I'm sleeping.
Options. Use mouse cursor or tab button to select
click
element.
narrator settings. How do I turn this off?
Game menu. Use mouse cursor or tab button. Use mouse cursor.
On day 13, after a quick accidental game of Spleef with Hobby, we worked on disguising the string farm as a big rock.
Oh, this rocks.
I started working on some water streams to transport the string into a cave below, and Hobby went off to start preparing fisherman villagers for string trading. That didn't last long though, because I was straining with the strange structuralist string streams and needed Hobby to strategically straighten out my struggle. The next day, a thunderstorm swept in, and we found ourselves very unprepared for gold farming, having forgotten to replenish our pig stock. Unfortunately, this will become a bit of a theme this episode. We managed to get a few nuggets, which is better than nothing, but if we're gonna get every gold item for our museum, we're really gonna need to focus more on this. The two of us spent the night discussing how we could construct some sort of gold farm before drifting off dreaming about the exciting possibilities. On day 15, Hobby did some more trading and combining and got a nice new lure enchanted fishing rod.
Oh yeah, lure is gonna make this so much better.
I spent the day working out an entrance to our string farm storage. I'm calling it Spider Cave. I tried using some iron bars and black wool as spider webs and spiders. I kind of like it, but Hobby was being a hater.
It just looks like iron bars.
Nah, you gotta believe. But Hobby atoned for his hateful rhetoric by delivering me some consolation golden carrots. We decided to build a fake iron beacon next to our museum with all of our extra iron, and then afterwards I continued working on the spider den, and, well, you know what happened next. Oh,
When will you learn?
this is an outrage.
I'm outraged.
No. Tensions were a bit high, so Hobby spent the next day doing some stress-relieving fishing. Soon after, we had our first visit from my dear friend Wandy T. His selection was a little lackluster, but we purchased some tropical fish from him as well as a red mushroom, which we can grow into a huge mushroom. That should at least provide us with some fun new building blocks. While Hobby did unspeakable things, I spent the evening using the flower farm. Instead of fishing going wrong and just catching cod, Hobby caught the god rod. Please give a nod and applaud for the god rod. The next day I returned to terraforming and Hobby slowly traded with the villagers, but we were both feeling a little emo.
Bring me back to life. Can't wake up.
Hobbs decided to spend our 20th day fishing, and I continued building up the terraforming around our farm area until we logged off for the night. Another 10 days had passed quickly, but we were both excited for our next play session. Between sessions, I set up a Lightmatica schematic to help me with the challenging terraforming, but almost as if the structuralist gods were punishing me, I was slain while attempting to set it up. Pretty sure this is my third death in the series, and Hobby has only died once. Show off. Hobby avenged me like the gentleman he is, and then I went back to working on terraforming, which was much faster with the schematic. On day 22, Hobby set out to do his daily sheep shearing chores, and then headed over to the spider cave to start constructing a new villager trading hall for bulk string trading. We really want to be able to make a fake emerald beacon to match our fake iron one. I continued placing wool until nightfall, and then I paused briefly to add some lanterns to the wheat field. The next morning I farmed some moss blocks and Hobby expanded the new trading hall. By the end of the day, the wheat farm was looking super cool, and I was really happy with all the terraforming. But despite my satisfaction, I was really needing a break, so I went to use the seaweed bar to switch things up. Nothing like barbecue and some kelp to unwind. Hobby spent the majority of the day adjusting the trading hall so that the string can smoothly flow down the corridor and into storage. Work on our two projects continued through day 25. I gathered some azalea leaves to add more greenery to my terraforming project, and then spent the rest of the day chipping away at it. Hobby was just about ready to start adding some villagers to the new hall, but he realized we had deactivated our villager breeder at some point to cut back on lag. So he turned it back on, and we both hoped it still worked. On day 26, Hobby farmed up some more spruce wood for the trading hall, and I added some hanging lanterns to the underside of the natural bridge. We also confirmed that the breeder still works. Yay. But despite the villager breeder still working, Hobby opted to spend the next day constructing a new one closer to his trading hall for the sake of convenience. I was approaching the end of my big terraforming transformation, but once again I needed to collect some more moss blocks using our little farm. Pretty soon they're gonna start calling me Mogswamp. On day 28, Hobby added some more cyan wool to Lagoon, and I took a quick bathroom break before finishing off the terraforming. Well, it was kind of finished. Hobby demanded I take action to stop the growing creeper cult forming in that area, so I spent day 29 lighting everything up. Once this area is fully mob-proof, we can finally fix those potato farms. While working on the lighting, I also converted a bunch of dirt into moss in order to beautify things a bit. Hobby made some great progress on his project too by getting the first couple villagers into place. I put the finishing touches on the farm area on day 30, and I was feeling more than ready to move on to other things. For once, no mobs seemed to be spawning, and I got the Hobby stamp of approval.
I gave it a B.
Hobby finished up the villager breeder, and I cleared out the pests from the potato farms and retilled the soil so that we'd be ready to repopulate them as soon as the breeder spat out some new babies. With 30 days behind us, I was already so pleased with the progress, but there was still so much to do. On day 31, I cleaned up the storage area for the auto crop farms, and then I collected some pods all to put down in our autumn area, which is an idea we got from some of the comments last time. Afterwards, Hobby and I were collecting some wool, and we started wondering who had sheared more. Apparently for gray wool, I'm the winner. Take that, Hobby. I'm just kidding, please keep making these videos with me, uwu. Hobby spent the rest of the evening peacefully fishing while I created a new Mog spawner in the snow area. Oh no. And then my game crashed. Why am I like this?
It doesn't have to be like this.
Really? There's a way to stop me from making Mog spawners?
Oh, nah. But there is a way to stop realms from crashing over and over again, and that's with Bluemhost.
So many Minecraft servers are underpowered and overpriced, but Bloom provides Ryzen 9 processors with dedicated CPU cores. I know a lot of computer nerds, and every time I show them my server, they look like this. I've used other server hosts in the past, but I always felt a bit limited. But Bloom is a big boy solution to server hosting. Their control panel is advanced and yet easy to use. Just try out the demo panel on their website. It even does server splitting, which is why I'm turning my public Superflat server into an entire Superflat network. And look at how Bloom stacks up to the competition. I haven't seen so many checkmarks since Elon Musk bought Twitter. They even have DDoS protection, and pair that with their insane uptime and it becomes obvious. Bloom is the clear choice to host your powerful gaming server. Check out the affiliate link and the coupon code in the pinned comment. But for now, we've got some mobs to take care of. The next morning, Hobby helped me clean up, and things got a little dicey in more than one way. No. Oh, watch out behind you, creeper.
That could be your angle or your double.
I crafted some jack-o'-lanterns to hide under the snow so we could get rid of those stupid, stinky torches. And then I visited a bee cave for the first time in a grip. I really love my bees. On day 34, I collected some more kelp blocks. I'm planning on using them to finish up the south wing. Hobby generously provided me with some wood for the renovations, and then I crafted more wool from the string farm to expand the snowy terrain. Hobby continued chopping wood and expanded the mineshaft area. On day 35, Hobby once again added to Lagoon, and by this point there was maybe only a stack or two of wool left to fill in. Then the two of us returned to our respective projects and continued chipping away at them for the next few days. On day 36, another thunderstorm rolled in, again reminding us that we have to figure out a better solution for farming piglins ASAP. Then the next day, Wandy T stopped by for another visit while Hobby was fishing. We bought some melon seeds and black dye, and Hobby planted the melons before the night was over. I guess we don't need meat melons anymore now that we have the real thing. The next morning, Hobby took the trader's llamas and then contributed to Lagoon once more. Meanwhile, I embarked on a new venture, a decorative tower on top of the south wing. I think it's really gonna help to make the building look more finished, kind of like that dome roof did on the north wing. By day 39, the tower was beginning to take shape. I farmed some pack mud to use on the base of the structure while Hobby continued his trading efforts. We already had almost 2 stacks of emerald blocks. Hobby rounded out the 40th day by continuing the trading grind, and I started to wrap up the new tower. I ran out of kelp blocks, but I just need a few more to finish off the roof. Somehow, 40 days were behind us already, and we were feeling extra motivated to keep grinding. We pressed forward, and I set off to dry some more kelp in order to finish the tower. We celebrated our first ever melon harvest, and then Hobby made some good progress on the railroad, managing to get some new villagers for our auto crop farms. By the end of the day, I finally completed the tower in the south wing, so the next day I made some time in the morning to admire the finished result. Meanwhile, Hobby continued moving villagers into the auto crop farm. I decided to add a giant mushroom to our autumn area, and I think it fits in perfectly. Big Animal Crossing fall vibes. Hobby wrapped up with rejuvenating the auto crop farms and cleaned up his little railway. On day 43, I traded for a new axe, and then I spent some time tidying up the side of the south wing. Unfortunately, Hobby had to leave me home alone to run some tests in a creative world. But Hobby got worried I would burn everything down and hastily logged back in on day 44. But I was just peacefully working on the areas around the Torii gates. I don't know why he doesn't trust me. Over at the southeast gate, I'm gonna try to build up the path a little and then eventually build a tree farm. We already farm our trees over here anyhow. Hobby was feeling confident enough to start a whole new project, finally creating a better way to collect gold. His idea is to separate the converted zombified piglins from our pigs using water so that we can convert as many pigs as possible per thunderstorm. An unexpected creeper explosion added just a touch of excitement to the evening. I think that works.
Yeah, the tree will be... Do you want... What?
As the sun rose on day 45, I found myself inexplicably humming Gary Come Home. Yeah, I'm talking about that song from SpongeBob.
Sorry I neglected you, oh I never expected you. Now my heart is beating like the saddest metronome.
I guess it's that point in the 100 days where I start to lose it a little. Don't worry, this always happens. Hobby, who seemed to be significantly more sane, was making great headway on the pig conversion tower. On day 46, I added more wool to Lagoon and then added some tropical fish we got from the trader. By the end of the day, Hobby was almost done with the tower. He needed some vines, so the next day I delivered some to him and then stopped to watch him struggle a bit.
Who let the pigs out? Who
I finished up the night by collecting some wood, and then on day 48, I used the wood I'd gathered to start working on the museum interior. Hobby was putting some finishing touches on the pig breeding cell. The next day proved to be quite eventful. We spotted a flaming zombie attacking our villagers and discovered the responsible culprit.
This one block? Are you kidding?
I went to collect more mangrove wood for my fancy red museum staircase, cursing the fact that mangrove is easily the worst wood to mine in the game. Meanwhile, despite some minor hiccups, Hobby managed to complete the pig converter. Now we just need a lightning storm to test it out. Finally, on day 50, I set my sights on creating a stunning marble floor for the museum using Lightmatica. I created the pattern using the Perlin Noise World Edit command. I'm gonna need a lot of weird blocks for this, like smithing tables and mushroom stems. Hobby found solace in the rain, going fishing, and even catching a Fire Aspect 2 book, which is handy for cooking meat. Somehow we were already halfway through the challenge. We were gonna have to start working a lot faster if we wanted to accomplish all of our goals for this episode. Day 51 was all about making steady progress. I continued my work on the museum floor, and Hobby kept fishing until the rain stopped. Afterwards, he switched gears and began to breed our black sheep so he could provide me with some black wool for the museum floor. Hobby also noticed he forgot the villager that goes in the middle of the auto crop farms. We'll fix that at some point. I spent the rest of the day farming mushroom stems. The following morning, I grabbed some fortune pickaxes so I could get mushrooms back more efficiently. Hobby was kind enough to combine them for me using the many impressive levels he had amassed from trading. I was very pleased to see how well the mushroom stems fit into the floor pattern. As I placed those in, Hobby collected more black wool for me like the amazing digital roommate he is. I kept collecting more mushroom stems the next day while Hobby worked on replacing the fishermen villagers in our trading hall with some more useful professions. Now that we have all those fishermen in the spider cave, they're really no longer needed here. We decided to replace them with more toolsmiths so that we can get new enchantments. I managed to craft another stack of smithing tables and then grabbed even more black wool for the floor, which was now nearing completion. Hobby finished up moving the new toolsmith villagers into place on day 54 while I gathered more wood for the smithing tables. We only need a few more to finish this off. On day 55, Hobby and I enjoyed a special moment as we finally finished the cyan wool for Lagoon.
What?
Infuriatingly, I found myself 3 smithing tables short of what I needed. But Hobby came to my rescue, and now we just needed more black wool. A mog farm sprung up in one of the dark corners, so we slept to clear out the mobs. Finally, I was able to complete the magnificent marbled museum mezzanine. I then began replicating the fancy staircase onto the other side. Hobby took on the task of finally fixing the auto crop farms for real this time. On day 57, Hobby finished setting up one of the rows of the trading hall, and I started collecting wool to make a colorful display at the museum. I continued gathering wool colors and beds the next day, while Hobby added more villagers to the system and chopped wood for barrels. On day 59, I paid a visit to the bee farm in order to grab some wax for candles. Then I made a trip to the tulip farm for dyes. Meanwhile, Hobby was still grinding away at the trading hall. By day 60, I had completed all the candles currently possible, and Hobby had finished setting up all of the villagers. I then started working on the banners for the color exhibit. As the day ended, Hobby and I found rest in the rainbow beds. Happy Pride Month! Another 10 days of collaboration and construction in our beautiful world. This place is starting to really feel like a home. On day 61, Hobby and I awoke a bit abruptly.
Oh.
Why are we facing each other? Then a slight mishap occurred when Hobby broke a random barrel and created a tidal wave of fish. Oh my god. I busied myself with collecting wool and was able to collect all of the banners except for green. Green is not a creative color. Hobby made significant progress with the toolsmiths and even procured a perfect diamond pickaxe. As the day turned into night, we had a lengthy discussion about the pig converter. It wasn't functioning as we'd hoped, and it was butt ugly, so we decided to move it underground and redesign it. We both agreed that the overhang area by the wheat farm would make for a cool entrance. So on day 62, we began the process of deconstructing the old pig converter, which somehow led to me making the exact same joke we already made earlier in the video.
Who let the pigs out?
The rest of the day was spent doing more planning. The following day, I focused on farming wood while Hobby got started on building the new and improved pig converter at its new location. Then we spent way too long trying to locate our oak saplings, which we eventually found in the pig pit. I may create mog farms from time to time, but at least I don't litter our base with random chests full of important items like Hobby does. Whose annoying roommate trait do you think is worse? Let me know in the comments. On day 64, I decided to start renovating the path to the tulip farm. While I was doing so, Hobby ran into Wanty T. Unfortunately, he only really had dripstone, oak saplings, and moss to offer, which is stuff we already had. The next day, Hobby continued constructing the pig converter, and I began building a gazebo around our tulip farm to dress it up a bit. Day 66 was another busy day. I ran out of wood and had to collect more, so while I was at it, I worked on improving the path a little bit to match the one on the other side. Hobby built up the infrastructure around the new pig breeder just to make sure it'll be easily accessible from the potato farm for easy breeding. He then added the signs to hold up the water, using brown wool for the walls. We began day 67 by doing some more planning for the pig converter. Afterwards, I spotted a slime slime in one of our autumn trees. I guess at some point I'm gonna have to go up there and use carpets to slime-proof the leaves. Then I headed over to the tulip gazebo and added a water flushing system to the pagoda just to make farming a bit more fun and easy. Meanwhile, Hobby spent the night in the dirt mines. On day 68, Hobby came to see the new tulip gazebo, which was officially finished. I then added a few small leaf gardens to the front to make it feel extra cozy. The next day was funny number day, so Hobby decided to breed our pigs while I had a less than stellar encounter with Wandy T. On the bright side, I did get some lime dye for sheep, meaning we're only missing green now. After saying goodbye to Wandy T, I set out to finally construct an old school tree farm that'll be able to catch some of the drops that fall when the leaves decay. I totally made up the design as I went, and by day 78, I'd made some good progress on the farm. Hobby was busy working on a large pig head to cover up our pig converter. It's definitely one of the goofiest things we've built so far, but somehow I kinda like it. At the end of the day, I stopped by with some black wool to make the pig look angry. It was definitely an unexpected conclusion to another 10 days. But we kept going on day 71. Hobby spent the day shearing sheep and mining dirt while I was occupied with finishing the new tree farm. The next day I was able to run the first test on the new tree farm and it seemed to work just as intended. Then it started raining, so Hobby decided to go fishing again. As night fell, the rain turned into a lightning storm, but sadly our new converter wasn't ready yet. But our fortunes shifted when Wandy T somehow returned again, this time with sand, brown dye, and more pufferfish. I went ahead and put our new dyes and item frames at the color exhibit. On day 73, I added the lime wool and lime candle to the museum using our new dye, and Hobby came across a trap horse. In a heroic move, Hobby managed to kill the archers and keep all 4 horses alive. But in an unfortunate twist, we discovered that a few of our villagers were turned into witches. We're not exactly sure how they were struck. It might be wise to add more lightning rods around the base, especially considering how much we've built with wool and wood. Hobby brought the demon horses back to his while I added a brown candle and orange dye to our collection at the museum. The only dye we're missing now is green. After that, I worked on building all the railings for the balconies and the stairs. On day 74, Hobby resumed work on the pig converter while I decided to start yet another new farm. This time, a slime farm. I found a good slime chunk to use behind the iron golem farm and started working on an icy path to get there. As we reached the 3/4 mark of the challenge, Hobby completed the holding cell for the pigs. I continued work on the slime farm, which, much like the tree farm, I designed totally off the top of my head. I summoned an iron golem, which attracts the slimes towards these campfires, which will slowly kill them. The next day, Hobby successfully led a piggy parade over to the new holding cell, albeit with some minor losses. I initiated operation of the slime farm, which surprisingly worked really well. After breeding the pigs, Hobby came to visit the now fully functioning slime farm as I finished up with the fences. On day 77, I worked on spreading some grass to beautify the slime farm a bit, and then I headed back to the farm area. I'm using the other side of this overhang here to create a staircase up to the surface for easy access. After I begged him to do so, Hobby dedicated some time to cleaning up his insidious chest monsters. His organizational efforts inspired both of us, and we decided to shift the focus to cleaning up the base for a bit. I put the purple bed back in its rightful place, then I went back to the farm area to continue my work on the new staircase. Hobby spent the evening creating a dedicated wool storage area to help with our ongoing cleanup effort. On day 79, we both teamed up to complete the wool storage. With that done, I started building the fishing shack while Hobby took advantage of the rain to do some fishing nearby. I then spent the entire night tidying up the fishing storage and making it look better. Somehow on day 80, we were visited by Wandy T again, but all he had to offer us was sand, much to Hobby's frustration.
It's got normal sand. That's it.
Oh man.
They're mocking us. Like, we keep getting all these traders.
Wandering trader? More like wandering traitor. While Hobby had a stern word with our mutual friend, I created some dedicated storage for the tulip farm and for our flower farm in Crystal Cave. With only 20 days left to go, both of us were really feeling the pressure to get things done. On day 81, I cooked up a bunch of lamb chops. I will truly miss our uncooked meat melons. The cooked mutton is closer to a food source like salmon. We shall call them lammin. While I was busy in the kitchen, Hobby was engaged in a trading marathon. I dedicated the entire next day to clearing out our mob farm storage and organizing everything. After a bit more trading, Hobby finally had enough emeralds to create our fake emerald beacon. Isn't it glorious? If we ever get glass panes, we can make some fake beacon beams shooting up into the sky. The next day, Hobby swung by the storage room to help me decide the best way to organize things. Afterwards, he crafted tons of chests for string storage and also fetched iron for hoppers. I woke up from a nightmare on day 84 and accidentally punched Hobby.
Wow.
Then Hobby took some hose to the tree farm.
I brought some hose over to the spruce farm.
Meanwhile, I laid out some storage for each wood type. We don't have them all yet, but when we do, I will thank my past self. I finished dyeing the signs for the chest the next morning, and Hobby let me know how cool he is.
I'm too cool for Tool.
I really have no idea what the context there was, because all I can remember from that day was this iron golem helicopter. During my organizing spree, I came upon Hobby's helping hand. This would be a funny addition to the museum. On day 86, Hobby decided to name his new trading hall the Noisy Caverns. I have no possible idea why. Meanwhile, I was finishing up with arranging and organizing the chests. There's still a lot of organization left to do, but I was getting really bored of moving items around, so I decided it can wait until next episode. Now that the pigs were officially out of our pig pit, I decided to spend day 87 creating Pig Pit Park, starting with some beautiful custom trees. Hobby was on a mission to gather some bone blocks for his Noisy Caverns project. At the end of the day, I ran into one of my cats and I decided to give her some catnip. I should probably name all my cats at some point. All I remember is that the brown one is named Kitters. Both of us were pining for more wood on day 88. I logged some time mining mangrove wood while Hobby branched out a bit and collected spruce. I will not apologize for writing that. Or should I say, I would not apologize. The next day, as I returned from chopping mangrove wood at spawn, I found myself imagining our base as a full island. I think my main goal for next episode, aside from completing the museum, will be to finish off the terraforming so that the backside of everything actually looks finished. I spent the rest of the day finishing up the roof of the fishing shack with the mangrove wood I had collected. Hobby spent his day adding more hoppers to the string storage, and then he began to flesh out an office for himself in Noisy Caverns. On day 90, I spent the morning creating these adorable fish banners for the top of our fishing shack. Hobby spent the morning creating a second string duper because apparently one just wasn't enough for him. I'm not gonna lie, his obsession with emeralds is beginning to frighten me. But I had no time to dwell on how much Hobby scares me because there were only 10 days left. On day 91, I added some large decorative torches to the trading hall because, well, I guess I have no idea why I did this, but they look cool, right? Afterwards, I cleaned up some chests near the and I came upon some light blue wool, which I used to finish the ice road to the slime farm. Meanwhile, Hobby continued to work on his office. The following day, I made some improvements to the storage area at the slime farm, and then I added more trees to Pig Pit Park. Hobby invited me to come see his office, and I have to admit, it's looking really cool. Then on day 93, I made probably the best change in the entire video so far. I added some staircases to Pig Pit Park.
Holy moly, best change made so far.
After that, I sprinkled some spruce leaf bushes around and worked on some paths, which vastly improved the overall look of the park. Hobby started working on a basement for his hobfists, and then he took another break to gather wood. I woke up on day 94 feeling like I was in Vietnam. Why? Why, dude? But once things calmed down, I finished up the paths in Pig Pit Park, and Wani T made a final appearance. And boy, oh boy, did he go out with a bang. Even Hobby agreed that the selection was amazing.
This guy gets to live.
He brought us sugarcane, cactus, birchwood, and ice. A whole new wood type to decorate with and 2 new farms to create. Now that we have sugarcane, we can even try to make map art, which is something we've both wanted to do since day 1. We really need ideas for a map art to do for the next episode, so please send us your cool fan art or suggestions in the Structuralist channel on my Discord. Due to my renovations on the park, some mobs were able to spawn, and the next morning we made the tragic discovery that our OG villagers had perished. Quick moment of silence for those guys. Alright, that's enough. At least now we can renovate that side of the storage room a bit. Hobby pitched a tent in Pig Pit Park for some added decoration, and I built a little fountain, which I named Pufferfish Fountain. We also grew our very first birch trees, and then we spent the night sleeping under the stars in our new tent. With just 4 days to go, Hobby started working on getting our first librarian villagers by planting some sugarcane. Once we can craft these into lecterns, we'll unlock a whole new profession, which gives us a bunch of new items. I decided to go back on working on the areas around each Torii gate. I created these stairs going up to the museum promenade. I just really wanted this area to look a bit more finished before the 100 days was up. I moved on to the other side on day 97, adding some big wool boulders to break things up. Meanwhile, in anticipation of reaching 400 days, Hobby constructed what we're calling the Celebration Terrace. This basically replaces that little table we used to have where our wool storage now sits. Feeling the time crunch, both of us worked furiously to complete our projects on day 98. The next morning, I spotted Hobby pulling a Kool-Aid man on the stairs, and he surprised me with the first glass of the series. This is why we wanted those lecterns so badly. Not only can we use the glass to replace the ugly spruce leaf drop chute at our mob farm, but we can also now fill in the color exhibit at the museum with each of the glass and glass pane variants. Hobby also gifted me a clock and a compass. Fancy. I was pretty much happy with the staircases to the museum, so I worked on a bit of terraforming for the rest of the day. While I was doing that, Hobby crafted our first ever map and made a quick little 3x3 of our entire base. We gawked at it until the next morning, thinking about all the different possibilities for another episode. Thanks to Wandy T, we're gonna have so much to get done next time. The two of us are gonna need to spend a lot of time planning. We were so excited that we began a brainstorming session on day 100 and came up with a big list of ideas for our next episode. Now that we have birchwood, we could create a desert or a beach area with the stripped logs. The terraforming possibilities are endless, but unfortunately, we both had to accept that for now, it was time to wrap things up. We decided that we would meet up for a celebration that evening. Hobby spent the rest of the day creating the Pig Pit Park potato patches. We're calling them for short. I farmed up some more dirt and wool for my future terraforming projects, and before we knew it, the sun was setting. We climbed up to the celebration terrace feeling very proud of the world we've built together. other and all of the progress we've made. You know, a lot of people think that Hobby and I know each other in real life or something, but the truth is he's just some random guy from my Discord. He introduced me into the Structuralist Challenge, and when I asked him to do the first video with me, I honestly had no idea if it would do well or not. Now it sits as my most viewed video ever, and Hobby has become one of my closest friends. And for that, I have to thank you, the viewer. If not for your support, none of this would be possible. And who knows if Hobby and I would even be friends. So I sincerely hope you'll join us for at least one final 100 days in this world. See you next time.